All right. So that's what the advantage to an open listing would be. Used very infrequently. I've never been a part of an open listing before. All right. Now, what I want to do, there are 3 buyer's agency agreements I want to go over that are not in the book, but I know they are on the exam. So if you're at home listing, we're still staying on the same slide, but for you guys, understand, you might want to write this down somewhere. Everybody write this down. There are 3 buyer's agency agreements. The exclusive buyer, I just lost my mind. Unknown caller. The exclusive buyer representation or the exclusive buyer agency agreement. That's not right. The exclusive buyer. What's it called? I've lost my mind. It's the exclusive. I've lost my mind. The exclusive buyer representation agreement it mentions in your book actually is the group of the 3 of them. Exclusive buyer agency agreement. The exclusive buyer's agency agreement. He said with 50% confidence. Yeah, we'll circle back around to this. No, we won't. We're going to do it right now so we can see them. Basically, as you can see, the exclusive right to sell means you get paid no matter what. It was you are the procuring cause. So on the other side of that, the mirror version is the exclusive buyer's agency agreement, which says I get paid my commission no matter what. This is the form that most buyers hate to sign. Who's bought a house recently? Nobody? You did, Josh. I know you did. Did you sign a form with your agent saying that he was going to exclusively be your agent? You did. So you signed an exclusive buyer's agency agreement. All right? So what that means is the agent that you were working with got paid the commission because he was the procuring cause. The state looks at it like the agent went up to Josh and went, you're going to buy a house today, and you're going to use me to do it. And Josh went, okay. So that when Josh buys the house, his agent was the procuring cause and gets paid. His agent could have been golfing with the listing agent in Hawaii when Josh decided to have the offer written, and his agent went, I get paid. All right? So it's very similar and analogous to this. I get paid no matter what. Okay? The second one, which is going to seem confusing, is called the exclusive agency, buyer agency. Over here on the listing side, number 2 is called the exclusive agency, right? You could have said exclusive agency, listing agency, but the fact that you just say exclusive agency, they know you mean the listing side. If you're talking about the buyer side, it's called exclusive agency, buyer's agency. And like the listing side, it mirrors the exact same thing. I get paid no matter what, except, guess, except if the buyer finds the seller without me. The other one was, the exception was if the seller finds the buyer. That's the exception on the listing side. On the buyer side, it makes sense. The exception is the buyer finds the seller. Remember the story I just told you? The seller standing in the driveway, sweeping his driveway, the jogger runs by, and the seller says, hey, you want to buy my house? And the buyer says, sure. If that buyer would have been under an exclusive agency, buyer agency, that buyer's agent wouldn't have got paid because the buyer himself found the house. He did not use the assistance of his agent. I see a lot of deer in the headlight looks. Certainly.
If they find the house like on Zillow and then they call you and say, I need information about it, did you find the house? Or did they...
Question is, if they call you and ask for information, did you find the house? The answer is definitely maybe.
Oh boy.
All right?
There's no gray area there.
There really is no gray area on that one. Did they, if you gave them customer level service, potentially the judge could rule you didn't find the house. Hey, is it 4-bedroom? Is it $128,000? All that information they could have called anywhere. Now, if they ask you about the house and then they ask you to show them the house, that's a different story. Now, once you walk them in the door, you've found the house for them.
So they find the house and then they set it up with the seller themselves to look at it?
You did not find, if they find the house on Zillow and call the seller themselves, you did not find the house for them. All right, and there is a lot of gray area here because there are people that have tried to say things like, well, the buyer, in my scenario, the buyer that was running by saw my sign in the yard and that's how he knew it was for sale. So in essence, I did find the buyer. Courts have never upheld that yet, but that plea has been tried several times. Or they were on my website looking, so I did find the buyer. That's never been upheld in court yet either. Typically, finding the house means you were holding their hand as you skipped down the sidewalk into the house. Here's the house, all right? Now, here's the problem. Exclusive agency is really not used a lot. The exclusive agency, buyer agency, because here's the third one. Guess what the third one's called? Open. Very good. If your buyer client doesn't sign an exclusive buyer's agency agreement, they will be working under an open agency, which means you get your half, your side, or nothing. Very similar to the open agency here. So here's what happens. You've got a client, and we went through this scenario the other day. You've got a client that you showed houses for the last 3 weekends in a row. And you didn't get them to sign the form. And that's probably through bad education on your part. You didn't really explain to them what that form meant. They thought, oh, I don't want to sign a contract. I don't want to buy a house. I'm kind of looking. This contract doesn't say you're going to buy a house. This contract says I get paid if you buy a house. All right? So they won't sign, so you send them, you go and you show them houses for 3 weeks in a row. After all, they are your neighbors, cousins, sisters, aunts on the brother side. So you're friends and they trust you and you trust them and all that. Next Sunday rolls along and you got tickets to go to the Colts game and they call up and go, hey, I want to go see this house today. And you say, I got tickets to the Colts game. And they're like, oh, cool, have fun. And they go and see the house without you. You are now not the procuring cause anymore because you didn't show them the house. So you come back from the Colts game and they go, hey, I went ahead and went to that open house without because I really wanted to see it. It was such a good house. I went ahead and wrote an offer right then. There's a technical term for that. You're now called screwed, is the technical term. See, if they would have been on the exclusive buyer's agency agreement, you'd have got paid no matter what.
Okay, so that's what I was going to ask.
Yes, if you haven't, it helps protect you against them doing that. If you had, the question was, if you have them sign the buyer's agency agreement, it protects against them doing that. It helps protect them against them doing that. Because potentially they could lie. Would they go into the open house? Yes, right. The scenario should play out like this. I'm standing in my listing's open house. A person comes in, I'm like, hey, are you an agent? No, I saw the open house. A good agent would say, are you working with another agent? And you go, yes, I am. It's Raymond Modulin. He's at the football game today. Then they would go, oh, okay, I know Raymond. I'll call him and let him know you are in here. But now I can't really help you because you have agency with another agent. Remember, I can't talk. I can give you customer level service. Like, here's the flyer. It's 128,000. It's 4 bedrooms. And you go, well, is he motivated? Can't help you. So typically what will happen, or what can happen, is do the scenario again. Are you working with an agent? And you go, no. Okay, well, come on in. Because now what I see is limited agency. So I start helping you, and I'm like, oh, here's a good deal. Let's do this, all right? And let's write the offer, and we write the offer right there. The next morning or that afternoon, you called me and go, hey, I wrote the offer. Well, I've got you as an exclusive buyer, so I would have to call that listing, and now we're back into that conversation of, hey, they lied. They're actually my client. I've got the form dated 2 weeks ago. So now either I'll take over and give you a referral, or you keep it and give me a referral, or I owe you one and you owe me one, but we'll get it straightened out. That happens a lot, all right? Because they think if you say yes, which is true, they're not going to help you, which is true, they won't, because they're not supposed to. So a lot of them say no. Or a sneaky, unscrupulous agent potentially would go, did Raymond have you sign any documents? Well, no, I've been working with him, but I never signed anything. Oh, well, then I'm free. Legally, I'm free to try and harangue you, even though ethically I probably should say, well, you've been working with Raymond, I'll call him. All right? Question.
As a agent, and I have a buyer, in my education to my client, I should say, to my buyer client, you're not going to pay me anyway. The seller's going to pay me. So
Yeah.
This is going to cost you anything. Let's sign this agreement.
So the question was, ethically or not ethically, how do you get them to sign the buyer's agency agreement? Okay, let me tell you the story. Here's how I spin the story. And if we ever do a deal where we're opposite sides of the table, I'm telling you now, I'm throwing you under the bus. Because I'm telling you now, be prepared. Because here's how I explain it to my client. And I am probably 100% success rate when you use this story. You look at your client and go, hey, do you want me to get paid for doing this? I have never had a client say no yet. They all say, well, yeah, of course you should get paid. Okay, well then what I know is I trust you and you trust me. It's Lydia on the other side we don't trust. Look at her, she's shifty. So this document ensures that I get paid if you make an offer. It's not saying you have to, but if you do, it protects me and my paycheck, okay? Okay, sign this form. And they sign the form all the time. Because that's what this form is really doing, is protecting me, my paycheck. It is, a lot of buyers seem to think that they're signing a contract to buy a house. Well, I may not want to buy a house. It doesn't matter. You don't have to buy a house. What it's saying is, if you make an offer, I get paid for this. That's why I want you to sign it.
On this side, as the client, how do you enforce them doing their job so they can get paid? Because some people are just struggling. I'm just have to tell you.
Some people are struggling. You mean agents are struggling? The question was, how does the client enforce who to do their job?
Agents.
Well, if you bind yourself to me through a contract, I now have obligations to you. So in order to get me to do my job, hopefully I've got some reason to do my job. I'm going to get paid. But if you don't, you would then call their managing broker, which is exactly what we just had recently, that deal that I was telling you about that I went and closed the other day. The client called me and said, I don't think that your agent is doing the best for me. Now, in this scenario, that agent or the client was batshit crazy. All right? So
does your agent still get paid?
I still got paid. Remember, it's me. It's my commission. I got paid, yes.
But did you still split it with her?
Yes, I still split it with her because she was not at fault in this particular. This girl accused her of taking pictures of her Social Security card and calling the bank and trying to get her. She said, your agent called my bank to get my financial information. I'm like, what the hell? So I called Huntington and spoke to the bank, and they're like, yeah, Renee called today because we're the lender of the loan, and Renee called to get the closing disclosure for the closing on Friday, which we have to do. So she said, called my bank to get my financial information. What really went on is the agent called the lender to get the closing disclosure to make sure all of our clients' numbers were correct, which is what we do all the time. So that's what I'm saying. This girl had this whole whack misconception of what was going on. So I told her, I said, sure. And I told Renee, I said, look, Renee, I'll just take over. It's no big deal. You step out, I'll step in, we'll close and move on. So that's what happened. I went to the final walkthrough. I closed for her, paid Renee.
Is that the one who thought that she got called a goatee?
Yeah, she got... Yes, that's exactly when thought she got insulted by calling her name, and she called her gullible. She said, don't be gullible. Let's make sure we get this in writing. Because the client said, well, they told me they were going to change the garage door. Don't be gullible. We need it in writing that says they're going to change the garage door. So Renee advocated for her tremendously throughout the play and saved her in a couple areas. But yet this girl's perception of what was going on was completely off kilter to the point where she actually literally called me at 6:30 in the morning one morning and said, I want Renee out. I want you to take over. So as the managing broker, that's my job. I stepped in and said, okay, I'll do that.
So do we tell our clients that if for some reason we're unavailable, they can contact our managing broker?
Yes, that's my job. If you're unavailable, after all, it's my client to begin with. So I have a reason to make sure that client's taken care of. If you got to go, and this has happened many, many times. One of my agents has worked with a client, closing gets scheduled, and my agent calls me and goes, dude, I've had this vacation scheduled for 8 months. Okay, I'll go to closing. It's my client anyway, so I'll go to closing. There have been plenty of closings where I've walked in and said, are you Barbara? Yeah. Hi, I'm Raymond Modulin. I'm your agent. It's the first time I met him. Let's sit down at the closing table. All right? Hold on a second. Let's change audio, then we'll go back.